Hello, everyone. This is Whit Tuttle. Thanks for joining another one of our webinars from Visit North Carolina as we ride out this current situation. We're going to start off today. It's a very important webinar, a conversation on diversity in the tourism industry. I'm going to talk a little about where we are with the current situation. As you know, we're doing weekly research on what's going on with tourism, but then we'll get into this, what we think is an important conversation about an area where we really do need to grow. And when we're not a leader as opposed to our visitation. So we've got a great panel today of folks we're going to hear from, and we'll get to that in a little bit later. We've got Nabors, Rhonda Moret, Earl Hunter, and Deborah Holt Noel, all to help with us. Thanks, guys, for being here. And let me talk a little about where we are right now, and then we'll get to the situation. Can you guys see this? All right, let me see. Let me put my screen up here. I want to talk about this. As everyone knows, we're doing these weekly research on what's happening with the coronavirus, and to get the traveler mindset, to see how people are feeling. I'm just going to go over a couple of the real highlights. We're tracking, first of all, whether people think the situation is going to get worse or whether it's going to get better. And we have been flattening that curve, and we had people thinking it was just about as many thinking it was going to get better rather than getting worse. We've retreated really in the last few weeks, and I think a lot of that's around media coverage concerning outbreaks of the virus, particularly across the South. And so that's a bit of a challenge for us. We've got people are getting more pessimistic about whether the virus situation is getting better or worse. So that's a bit of a challenge. The good side of that is that it has not really dampened their excitement to travel now. People still want to take those vacations, want to take those trips. We haven't seen that growing and growing. It's kind of flattened, but it is still holding off. The other good sign is, even though people were slightly more pessimistic this week, we saw that they were a little more ready to receive travel information and open to learn about travel and what they're doing. So these are continued to be good signs. This was an interesting question that's been added the last few weeks, whether people are ready to travel right now, whether they're ready to go, whether they feel some hesitations, whether they feel a lot of hesitations and they're not ready. And really only about 1 in 5 are traveling without hesitation. So I think that just shows more about how important it is for us to do these programs such as Count on Me NC, where we're showing that people can travel in a safe and socially distant way, and we're encouraging those behaviors from both the businesses and the travelers. So we see that as growing important. Expectations for the fall are holding on. We had been getting a lot better. Now we've kind of leveled off the last few weeks for fall travel, but we still think people, that's the time when they're looking to start traveling. People are getting better about going out in their home communities, which I think is the first step. We have to get people back comfortable with going out in their own neighborhoods before they'll go into other neighborhoods and become travelers, and before they're really willing to accept travelers into their own communities. So it's good to see that that is slowly still growing. We still do have an issue with travelers not wanted in the community. It stems out of that fear of bringing COVID to their communities. We're seeing a little more of that with the stories on the spread. So that's also something, you know, we want to be very careful about and cognizant as we go forward. So that's really just a quick overview of the research and what we're seeing happening today. We'll talk more about this as we plan to release our ad campaign and program next week with a July 1st start. So we're excited about that Count on Me NC program, and we think it's going to help people feel comfortable about traveling once again. But we really thought it was important before that to talk about a question about diversity in tourism in North Carolina. We've seen this issue crop up across the country and in North Carolina as well. It's not a new issue, and it's not something we're not familiar with. But I do think there are things we can learn about it, and there are things we can do better than we've been doing so far. So we asked Andre Nabors from our staff, who's our partner relations manager and does a lot of our community relations and community management, to put together a panel to talk about some of the issues and what we can do. So I was really excited about what Andre was doing, and he's going to lead today's session. I'm going to step back, and you're going to listen to him and his group. We're really excited to have such a great panel. Thank you, Andre, and please take it away.
All right, thanks, Whit, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on this session today with what we feel is a very important conversation, as Whit mentioned. That's, I think, will be great for our state as well as our industry. With all the things that's been happening throughout the country these last few months with COVID, with race relations, and all other things that have been happening, we just feel like, through working together, being more focused and being more intentional, that we can create a more inclusive environment for our state and also for our industry. Just a quick reminder that over the course of the conversation that we're having today, if you have any questions, there is a chat box within the system here where you can enter your questions, and I think our trusty pal, Guy Gaster, will be able to relay those questions to our panelists. So we do have a phenomenal panelist today. In my opinion, I was pretty happy that these folks are able to join us. So just real quickly, we have Rhonda Moret, who's founder of Elevated Diversity in Southern California. I think everyone here, or mostly everyone here, knows Deborah Holt Noel, who's also UNC host and producer of the popular shows, such as North Carolina Weekend, as well as the Black Issues Forum. And then we have Earl Hunter, who's founder and president of a company called Black Folks Camp 2, who resides actually in Western North Carolina. And if I'm not mistaken, is an App State grad. I actually played football there. So happy to have you guys here. So before I turn it over to Rhonda, who's actually going to kind of moderate our panelist discussion here today, I just wanted to share some information just from what I gathered from the folks at US Travel, who had done a panel discussion a few weeks ago on race and racism, and how our industry could actually be a leader, could kind of lead by example when it comes to diversity, particularly within our industry. And kind of during that conversation, they talked about an array of things, but one of the things that they actually started the conversation off was somewhat more of an uncomfortable maybe situation that they had faced as Black men and as a Black woman who were on the panelists throughout the industry that they had faced. And so I wanted to kind of start the conversation off by sharing something that somewhat of an uncomfortable situation that I had faced within the tourism industry over the 28 years that I've been a part of the industry myself, coming out of West Virginia as a tourism counselor at a welcome center, and moving on to the state office in marketing, going to a CVB in Charleston, West Virginia as well, and then moving to North Carolina, and then becoming a part of the North Carolina tourism team as well. So, and my experience is really not so much of an uncomfortable situation where it pertains to either race or facing some type of racism, but it's really more of the fact that, any of the conferences that I've gone to, or any of the meetings that I've gone to, or any presentations that I've had to do within the tourism industry, whether it was in West Virginia or North Carolina, going into those meetings and literally at some point, in most instances, being the only Black face or person of color in the room. And some instances where there may be 300 in attendance at a conference, or even 500 in attendance of a conference, and being able to count the people of color on one hand that's in the room of a larger event. And that was really uncomfortable for me at the beginning, at the start of my career. Now, I've come to the realization that, that just kind of, unfortunately, that just may be the norm. So after years and years and years of having to go through that, I've become accustomed to being put in that situation But I think now we have a chance to kind of change the narrative. And what I'm hoping is that this conversation here today will reflect that and understand that this won't be the last conversation that we have about this. We want to make sure we keep this dialogue going so we can make sure that we make North Carolina and our industry much more better, more inclusive for all visitors to see. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda Moret. So Rhonda, you have the floor now. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much. And I really appreciate the opportunity. As you noted, Andre, this is an incredibly important conversation for us to begin having. It's a conversation that I feel is long overdue. But now that we are here today, I think this is an opportunity for us to start seeing some real meaningful challenges or changes just based on the response that we're seeing across the country. So I'm really hopeful. I'm feeling really positive that we're able to make some changes. So one of the things that we wanted to start off with was a poll. So I'm hoping, oh, there we go. Okay, so we wanted to start with a quick poll just to somewhat take the temperature of the room and see where we all are in terms of diversity and inclusion efforts. So the question is, within the last 2 years, have you increased the resources and overall budget to support various diversity and inclusion efforts? So you can say yes. We've enhanced those efforts significantly, and that would be by, say, 10%. Yes, but only moderately, and that would be a 1 to 9. No increase, and no, we don't have any current D&I efforts. So we'd love to get an idea of where we're starting. So if you could go ahead and mark your response. We'll give a few minutes to get those votes in and tally those up.
Rhonda, it looks like the majority of those participating at 40% currently have no increase, with the next group being about 25% yes, but only moderately, with 1 to 9%.
Okay. So we've got 40% and 25%. And I'll show you how that reflects to what we're seeing as a benchmark with with others in various organizations. So if we could go to slide 3, we'll share how those figures compare with others. Okay, perfect. So by the numbers, just as we all know, D&I efforts are becoming much more critical. It's becoming a very popular functional area within many organizations. So what we're seeing, based on some of the research from real notable organizations such as Deloitte, they're showing that there's an increase. I mean, there's an awareness that, hey, we need to do something when it comes to diversity, inclusion, not only on an internal basis, but also how they market out to their prospects and customers and so forth. So when you look over these numbers, it gives me some hope that, yeah, we are making some changes. So even with 69% of the executives noting that diversity and inclusion is an important issue, that says something. 10, 15 years ago, that number would not be anywhere near that high. So we are seeing some changes. The last one that I wanted to include on there is from Indeed. And over just the course of 1 year, they're saying that they saw an increase of 20% in terms of the number of D&I job posting. So not only are companies saying, yes, it's important, they're putting their money behind their words. And I think that that's really something that, again, shows some promise and shows that we're headed into the right direction. If we go on to the next slide, the reasons are clear. There's research and study after study that shows us that diverse organizations just simply perform better. You know, obviously it's the right thing to do, but it hits them where their pocketbooks are. You know, you've got tangible increases to your bottom line that are measurable. So why wouldn't you take a step back and say, okay, let's bring more people into the fold. Let's have different perspectives. So again, just wanted to share some of those numbers just to frame it, so we all know what the state of the state is when we're talking about D&I. On the next slide, what we pulled this together. The top row talks about how diversity and inclusion can really be helpful from a marketing vantage point. So some of those outbound outreach efforts. And then the second line addresses from an internal basis. So what does your team look like? What are the benefits there? What are employees looking for when they're looking for organizations to work for? How are you going to get the best engagement? So these are all benefits that again have been proven effective. So with that said, just to share a quick background on my background, I spent a good 20 years marketing. So I've done marketing for some pretty high profile organizations, ranging from Universal, PGA, PGA of America, Subway. I've done some work with some pretty high profile individuals, Billie Jean King, Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and sometimes I've had people tell me you shouldn't include this, but I've even worked with Donald Trump back in the day before everything changed. And I've got some Donald Trump stories if anybody's interested on a later date. But that's my background. So I've helped organizations. I've always been that person in the room that says, you know what, we need to have some Black and brown faces in here. You know what, that's not really going to appeal. That's not going to resonate with the African Americans. So that's been my role. And then today, what I do is help organizations identify what that D&I strategy should look like. How can we bring more people from diverse or underrepresented backgrounds to our organization? So I wanted to start today just on the marketing front. So I'd like to start with Deborah, just to ask her opinion in terms of, with her work on TV and these incredible shows that she produces, what she's been seeing from the African American vantage point and how organizations have marketed to that segment or have not marketed to that segment. So Deborah, do you have some thoughts you'd like to share there?
Sure. I appreciate being on the panel today. With regard to the question about marketing and just what we see, what I see, in the years that I have been doing what I do and visiting the Visit NC conference and getting to interact with lots of people around the state who are in the CVB industry, I pay a little bit more attention now to the advertisements that are going out. And I have noticed greater representation across the board in brochures and what appears to be, an intentional effort to, let's at least show pictures of these people. And what I mean by these people, certainly let's show pictures of a diverse community of travelers with different ethnicities, so that they can at least be in these magazines, be in these brochures. I see that in travel magazines. I see it in beauty magazines and really across the board. And so what it tells me is that is a step. It is an important step to see yourself in these images. I also notice what is specific to, representing, what is African American. So there's a certain look that's become popular, and it's based on, this move toward, natural beauty and natural hair and that kind of thing. And yet I know that the natural hair look in the ads that I see, that's not really natural hair, but at least it's an effort. So
it is an effort.
And it is, and I see a lot of biracial couples.
A lot
coming through on a lot of the advertisements as well, and that's a part of our community and reality as well. And what it causes me to jump to with regard to the current social consciousness and consciousness around social justice is that it is definitely a step to include those images for the purpose of marketing to that community. The next step is to include that community in who you are as a body, to include them in the workforce, and to be very intentional about recruiting people into that workforce.
Right. No, and definitely, because if you don't necessarily know that target audience, how can you effectively market to them becomes a question. So Earl, do you have any thoughts there as well? Obviously, you started an organization who targets the African American community because you saw an opportunity. Can you share a little bit more about your organization, why you started it, and where you see the industry going? Because I think you have a unique insight into diversity and inclusion within the industry. So I'm interested to learn more.
Rhonda, thank you so much, and guys, thank you so much for having me on the panel. Andre, thank you for calling. So first of all, let me just set this up a little bit. Again, I come out of the RV manufacturing industry. I was one of the, if you Google Black executive in the RV industry, you're only going to find one. The RV industry is a $141 billion industry. And I got to be frank with you, the industry is an amazing industry. There's a lot of dollars spent in the industry. There's a lot of dollars made in the industry. I came into this industry, the outdoor industry, without having any background of camping. I didn't know anything about the hiking, none of that. I was a Gucci, Louis Vuitton wearing sports coat, Italian suit wearing executive who knows how to drive the business, right? And so I came into the industry wanting to understand how we can sell a product, and I left the industry wanting how we can change the legacy within that space. With that being said, I see a lot of different things in regards to Black folks, and I always say Black folks because that's, the South, that's where I'm from, and we named our company that. But I see that I see the photos, I see the videos, and more inclusiveness in regards to Black folks. But we have to get to the root of the problems, though, in regards to why Black folks don't want to visit beaches or the mountains and things of that nature. And mainly a lot of that is because we don't know. So you can put us in the magazine and show us all the photos and all the videos and things of that nature. But if Black folks are not going to those particular entities and looking for those things, they're never going to see them, right?
Right.
So who you showing them to? That's the one crux of it. The second part of it is that I believe in D&I. I believe that we should really focus on diversity and inclusion. I believe that wholeheartedly. But I believe there's been a lot of talking and not a lot of walking, right?
Right.
I think it's so much easier for us to say, hey, we've been doing this, and it's been like we've been moving this needle so slowly. That's why one of the reasons why we're on this call today. We shouldn't even be having this call, to be frank with you. We shouldn't have a call like this because we should already be in 2020. We should be so far along in regards to our diversity and inclusion. And so with this being said, Rhonda, not to hijack the question, but I want to point this out, though, is that I believe that our company, and we are a company, Black Folks Camp 2, we're not a group. We are not a club. We are an ROI company. We show companies who are wanting to understand why the algorithms of Black folks in regards to our spending habits, what we like to do, how we like to get it done. We are the company to drive that, but we get to the root of it though. We get to the bottom of it, and then because we believe if you're only working on the surface, if you're only working on the surface of putting black faces in magazines and videos and things of that nature, what you're really doing is saying that you're doing the minimum, right?
Right.
And so for me, I believe that we have to drive a bit deeper. And yeah, we're making some progress, but I think that progress has been quite slow, to be frank with you.
Right. No, undoubtedly. And I think the next slide, if we can share that, just shows us that African Americans have money to spend in travel. I think to your point, Earl, yeah, a lot of organizations have done the bare minimum and just, okay, we've got a brown face there, black face there, I've checked the box, I'm done. But I think it's the savvy organization that takes the time to say, hey, you know what? There's an opportunity here. And there's a few slides that will show that, that we'll be reviewing this today. But just looking at $63 billion, I mean, if I was in the industry, I'd just sign me up. I want some of that cash. So how do I get that cash? You know, I have to arm myself with and be educated. And to Deborah's point, I need to have representation so that I can understand that segment. But Earl, I think you were going to say.
Well, I was going to say, you know, the outdoor. I talk about tourism, but I want to stay in the outdoor industry a bit because North Carolina is an amazing state. We have beaches and we have the outdoor. We have the mountains, right? And since I'm in the outdoor space in regards to camping, the outdoor industry, I was the master of ceremony at the Outdoor Economy Conference last year, 2019. Mm-hmm. We launched our company on the stage there October the 10th. And the outdoor industry is an $870 billion industry. Let me repeat that, $870 billion industry. Mm-hmm. Before I started my company, there were no facts or anywhere that you can find how much money that black folks were spending in that industry, right? Zero, right? But we know black folks spend $1.3 trillion a year on whether that be items that have equity or not. The bottom line is there's so much cash and so much money to be made. The thing about it is you have to ask the question. When you're talking about economics, do you really want that money? Do you really want that money? And I believe that companies do. The thing about it is they don't know how to go get the money, right? They don't know how to, they don't necessarily know how to do a little hugging and to get the money, because studies show that black folks, we're the most loyal spenders, most loyal buyers there are. And so with that being said, once you capture us inside our hearts and our mindset in regards to a certain product, not only we're going to love it, but we're going to pass that down to our friends and family members because we're loyal to that particular space, right? Mm-hmm. And so and I have so many examples of how that's the case and how that's happened. But the RV industry, the outdoor industry, we have an amazing opportunity to capture and to settle in a space that is unfounded. This is not an issue. This is not an issue of getting black folks out in the outdoor. This is an opportunity, right? And so
it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. And so
like you said, you've done all the due diligence. You know the numbers, but you took the time to do the research and really get a firm grasp on what the opportunity looks like. And I think, unfortunately, the reality is some organizations just haven't done that because maybe they feel like, oh, there's not enough money there. It's not worth our time. But you've seen a growth in those marketing strategies or campaigns that are targeted to other groups, whether it's, the baby boomers or millennials or the list goes on. I'm hoping as we move forward, there's a greater concentration because, again, it's just good business. I mean, we're in business to make money, right?
Absolutely.
So how can we go out and get the most of that? Yeah, Deborah.
I think that there has been a great deal of research out there about the African American spender for the purpose of making sure that companies do get to capture some of those spending dollars. And there's a hiccup, it seems, between, okay, we're going to do what we need to, if we have to put, you know, pictures of that reflect African American and other communities in our advertising, you got it, we can do that. And then the next step, however, is, you know, oh, we can bring on somebody who is an expert in diversity and inclusion, and we'll elevate that person, and they're going to have a certain position, and we're going to have a diversity and inclusion expert. So we've got that. But when it comes to the investment, and it could be, you know, kind of the shared resource of employment, the intentional effort to elevate people, to promote them, to pay them what they're worth, to pay for that value. There's the disconnect that I see. So Nielsen, Pew, the research is out there on a national scale. And when organizations want to drill down on what's happening with their organization, and drill down on the population of African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, and other ethnic groups that they want to try to attract, there's but so much you can do aside from, you know, getting next to some of these individuals, bringing them into your space, and making them a part of your organization. And promoting them up through the ranks at your organization. That's the disconnect that I see. And when I know that North Carolina Central University has a program in hospitality and tourism, and so I'm beginning to see at the Visit NC conference a few more people every year, one or two more, and I always stop and look, and I'm like, oh, you know, there's someone else who is in the industry, because and this is not this is not a mark on the people who I've gotten to work with over the years. Everyone's been super nice, good, kind, open, and I've been welcomed everywhere I've gone around the state. And I have good relationships, and I enjoy traveling across the state. At the same time, I can't help but look around and say, hey, wow, I don't see anybody else. There's a guy behind the table, and you know, I'll just admit, Andre, for a long time, I thought you were a vendor, because you were. I was like, I always see him in the hallway, but I don't exactly know what he does. But you know, I think you know, wow, he has position with the organization. I don't think I've seen you on the stage, and so you know, I fault myself for not going over and finding out who you are earlier than I did, but. I am glad to see that, you know, there is a school, an HBCU, that is focused on tourism, and I think that they have relationships. The work shouldn't be solely on their part to make sure they're out there and, hey, we're here and can we be invited? There has to be a top-down approach and interest and effort to, we're going to go for it. We're going to bring them in. They're going to be a part of what's happening with us.
Right. But I also feel with all of our recent social unrest, there's a lot more pressure on organizations to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to have greater representation?
Well, you know, to Rhonda, to hit on that, you know, just like Andre, you know, Andre, I feel you, man. Listen, I'm in the RV industry, okay? And so I'm normally the only Black executive walking around in conferences of thousands of people, right? But, you know, one of the reasons why I left the industry is so I could change the industry, right, for the better. And the only way that we're going to fix or improve on the narrative that we see today so that a social unrest does not create this panel, right? We have to want to go change it. You know, Earl is going to be amazing when it comes to driving the business. I'm going to be that guy to go out and take a company to a next level. But this is a legacy product for me. This is a legacy for me to get more Black folks into the outdoors, right? And so with that being said, the concentration to me has to be in a space where you have to meet people where they are, right? When we wanted to get black folks to go camping, we didn't go to the campgrounds because there are no black folks at the campgrounds, right? We didn't go to the RV dealerships because there are no black folks at the dealerships. We went to the place where black folks were. We went to CIAA. You know, we went to CIAA in Charlotte, and we had an amazing event there asking people, do you want to go camping? And not only that, though, you have over 200,000 black folks from, if you talk about sitcoms, I'm a Good Times kid, right? You have Good Times kids, you have some Huxtable kids, you have Huxtable adults, Good Time adults, all in this one space in Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Why not go there and get the data that you need? We did that, and we're a small company. Why? You know, we thought of those things. We thought of the things that we need to do because we were intentional about it, and we wanted to get it done. We wanted to talk that talk, and we wanted to walk that walk. As simple as that.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Obviously, let's take a look at slide 8, which gives us a quick snapshot as to travel trends. So first off, just let me frame this. So African Americans, according to U.S. Census Bureau, it's around 14.6, I think that stat. Yeah, 14.6. I've seen it anywhere from 12 to 14. We're going to go with this stat because that's the most recent. But if we go to the next slide, this is where I saw some opportunity, huge opportunity. And I also, it somewhat confirmed my hunch. So in terms of resident visitors, okay, you know, that's decent. In terms of out-of-state visitors, there's the opportunity.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're bringing in 9.1%, and just for simple math, we're using 14, that's a nice percentage that we can increase, which obviously translates to hard cold dollars, which is what we're all in business for. So the opportunity is there. I think it's the savvy organization that takes the time to figure out, just like you're saying, Earl, where do I need to go to find these people? How do I attract them to my product? And I'll just bring this up quickly because we talked a little bit about this yesterday, with making sure once those folks do show up that they feel welcome, that they're comfortable. So I'll open that up if anybody wants to take that question. If there's any recommendations from the African American perspective, how do you do that? I mean, once you start drawing these people here, how do you make them feel comfortable, welcome, without it being pandering to them, right?
Well, I want to take this though, because I want to brag on someone really quickly in North Carolina. There's a young man down in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. His name is Thomas Sally. He is the director of tourism in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Let me tell you, I met this young man at the Outdoor Economy Conference, and I gave him the spiel on what I wanted to do and how I feel like Black folks can Camp 2 can be really important to the state of North Carolina, but not only and also into the world, because we're gonna dive deep into what we really need to drive the focus on getting more Black folks to go camping, but also to enjoy the outdoor nature. And so what happened was that I met Thomas, and immediately we connected, and I visited. He invited me. All the things that we say, he invited me to his city. We did an amazing video. And that video has been trending amazingly. Over 50,000 views on this video, right? That we just thought of, what he thought of, and said, listen, together we said, listen, if we're going to invite people to your city, we have to do it in a way that they especially in the outdoors, we have to do it in a way that makes people feel comfortable. The video itself makes people feel like, wow, I want to visit Wilkesboro, right? I want to visit this town. I don't even know it's there, but I want to go there. My point is that when I arrived, just like when I arrived in Wilkesboro, Thomas made me feel comfortable about his city, right? It's the same anecdote, the same thought process. Every county, every state, every city in America should feel the same way. Look, we have to make sure that when you invite folks to your house, you have to make sure your house is tidied up and ready to go, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I always tell people, I just don't want to come to your house just because you cleaned it up right before I came. I want to come to your house the way it is because I want to know who you are, right?
I
You
love
are
that.
who you are, right?
Right.
So if you're going to change something, change it, but make sure you change it not just for me though. Change it because you want to see a change and you want to invite more people. So.
Right. That's a great story. I love that. I love that. Okay, let's go to slide 9 really quick, because again, going back to, and this is going to echo what Earl had said earlier, but I found this fascinating because it says 41% of African Americans expect their favorite brands to support social causes.
Absolutely.
The kicker there is that's 15% higher than the total population. So what does that tell us? Again, going back to Earl's point, this is a very loyal group. This is a group that is socially aware. I know with our organization, what we do is we have a social good program. When a company comes to us, we do a program for them. We immediately do a pro bono program for a nonprofit in an underserved community, because I feel like I want to educate everyone, not just the people that have the big dollars or work for the big organizations that bring us in, but just being able to educate everyone. So I think it's important for organizations to take a look at, okay, what are we doing to give back? What are we doing to make our world a better place, or to Earl's point, to make our house hospitable to everyone? So I just thought that was a really, really good question there. Another area that I just want to switch over to is the fact that with everything that's going on recently, I think there's so many of these stories that we're hearing, whether it's the Black Wall Street or Tulsa, that show us that a lot of Black history has just been overlooked. That I know I personally didn't learn it when I was in school. And I'm wondering, Deborah, with your travels, have you seen opportunities that these different destinations can really highlight some of the contributions of African Americans that you think people would enjoy learning about and visiting?
Well, certainly all across North Carolina, just about any place you go, there is an element of history there. And if you're talking about anything that has to do with American history, you're certainly talking about African American history too. And so and North Carolina has just been pivotal to the democracy of our nation. And so there are absolutely these places here. There are plenty of cultural heritage sites. The question can become, how do you interpret that history? How do you share it out? People seem to love history, nostalgia, and so I feel like we have to be careful. I try to be careful about how we introduce and talk about places. It's really easy to say, hey, let's go back in time. And we do that a lot on North Carolina Week. And let's go back in time. Understanding that African Americans don't want to go back in time. What we long for is the charm. There's some nostalgia. There's also pain in the history. So I think that all of these cultural heritage sites continue to have work to do in terms of figuring out how to share that history. I've seen it done badly, and I've seen good efforts as well. But we can't, for fear of doing it wrong, just, let's not talk about it. We got to figure out how to share that history. And I think about, how do I feel? How do I want my daughter to feel my child to feel when she hears about what went on in the past? How can we leave that? You know, what kind of feeling do I want people to leave with? We're on vacation. We're having a good time. You know, so do I want to stop and hear about something woeful? But there is there's value in understanding about the resilience of a people. There's value in understanding the history, and then we can, you know, maybe we compartmentalize and then we move on to the next thing. But it's a continuing conversation. There's an effort, and it requires conversation and consideration. We can't sweep it under the rug. There is just too much history in these southern states, and people appreciate culture. You know, we see it right now. What we don't appreciate, what a lot of people don't appreciate, is monuments to hate and monuments that appear to represent racism. And monuments are places that remind us of, that are just there for the pain. You know, so we have to figure it out. When a community is screaming, this is offensive to us, that has to be valued and recognized.
Well, and I think, Deborah, to your point, slide 10, it's a great segue into the next area of discussion, is just being aware. You know, I think it's a very sensitive area. You know, like you say, it's how can this be positioned in a positive way, that historical aspect, but it all comes back to having the right people in the room. So with this particular slide, we just pulled a few areas or examples of organizations, brands that thought, wow, this is going to make a great product. People are going to love this. Or it's situations where, oh, we've always had that logo, you know, it's not offensive to us. So we're just going to continue to move ahead. So I think with this, and again, Deborah, I'm going to go back to you as a African-American businesswoman. What are your hopes for the future as we start settling into this new norm where we have a greater concentration on diversity and inclusion efforts, and we see more and more brown and Black faces at the table at these events? What are your hopes?
I hope that this is not seen as an opportunity to just kind of get in the water with popularity. And that people see that, look, we have some self-evaluation to do. We have some commitments that we need to make. We're going to have to make some investments, and that means that you're investing in people, and that it's for the long term. And I hope also that it's not seen as, well, you know, we've got to go slow on this. No, we don't. No, we don't need to go slow on this. We've been going slow for 400 years. And so why not make a radical change?
That's a long time.
I mean, why not make a radical change for the better? We've seen a radical change take place in the last 3 months with coronavirus. It was the radical change was forced upon us. So it can be done. And, you know, our nation found $3 trillion to try to fix this or address it. So we can do the hard work, and it doesn't have to be some slow, tepid movement. Sometimes we got to have a radical change, and it's got to be from the top down. Plus, it's got to be inclusive of that grassroots community. Got to listen to people. So I'm really hopeful that this is not just some moment, and that it's, you know, like this jet stream of change.
Right. Any other thoughts or comments from the others?
Well, for me and Andre, I'll tell you guys this. You know, history is what actually propelled me to start Black Folks Camp too. Listen, the history of Black folks going into the outdoors. Listen, it's some horrific history. One of the reasons why Black folks don't really go into the outdoors and go into the woods because of some of the most heinous things that happen in the woods. And here's the thing about that is I know white folks have wondered why don't black folks really enjoy the outdoors as much as I do? Why I don't see them very often? Why I don't see them camping? Why I don't see them skiing? Why I don't see them doing all these other things other than necessities of hunting and fishing? I get that all the time. Well, black folks go in and they hunt and fish all the time. Yeah, but I'm talking about enjoying the hobby of camping and enjoying the outdoors, not necessarily for a necessity. And the biggest reasons is because of generational fear. We know that based on the surveys and things that we've done, going and actually meeting people where they are and asking them these questions. All the movies that they've seen, how black folks have been treated in the outdoors, where many of those things were scary. And so now when you're afraid, in the history of it that says that you're afraid to go in the outdoors, well, you never want, the second thing is you don't have any knowledge. You don't want any knowledge of something that you're scared of. So you don't think about camping, you don't think about the outdoors, you don't think about anything. But the third thing is, and this is the one thing that I think the state of North Carolina and everyone in the space can do. Black folks have to be invited. Again, once you invite us somewhere, allow us to say, no, I don't want to go there, right? I don't want to go there. But if you invite me and then I accept that, then now you have to prepare the place for me to come and make that place a safe place. The third thing on that is this. The fourth thing on this is probably the most important thing of it all, is that when you talk about inviting folks somewhere, or when you talk about inviting them to you, I believe North Carolina, and I've said this probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, that North Carolina can be the state that can invite black folks or people of color to the beaches, to the mountains. And we can do it in a way that everyone around us, every other state will look at us and say, you know what, those guys made a step and they did something that we couldn't do, and now we want to follow them. Let's be leaders, man. That's what I am. I'm a change leader, and let's not be followers. Let's be leaders, and let's talk that talk and walk that walk. And if we're not going to do that, and I said this to many people, I don't want to be on these panels having these conversations, because I don't want to waste your time, and you don't want to waste my time, right? My time is valuable, and yours is too. We have to really put our foot down and figure out how we can use the history, the good and the bad history, per se, to whoever's, it'd be good and bad, rather who's thinking about it. But for me, I want to use history to make us better. Let's make us better, man. Let's do this together. Black Folks Camp 2 is not about just getting black folks to camp with black folks.
Right.
You know?
Right.
We want to get black folks to camp with any and everyone, because we don't. We don't a lot, right? And so it's the same thing with the beaches. It's the same thing with visiting Raleigh and visiting some of the largest cities, Western North Carolina. Invite folks to come see you.
And I have to tell you, as far as inviting, I only take about 20 seconds because Earl bragged on somebody. I have to brag on Sue Dozier, who invited me to Topsail about 1.5 years ago. And I was treated, I had the best time. And next week, me and my family are going back to Topsail, to the same establishment, to spend an entire week there. So we just had a ball. And I just want to brag on Susan Dozier, who's just wonderful.
Nice. Okay, let's go to the last slide. We're going to wrap things up because we're approaching the hour mark. But in closing, are there any other comments that you all would like to share in terms of sharing with the attendees on how they can grow or how they can take that first step? Because realizing with the poll that we took, there's some opportunity, no doubt about it.
Right.
And I think people are understanding that yes, we need to do something, but a lot of people have no idea of where to start. So what are your recommendations?
Well, we have an amazing team. You know, Black Folks Camp 2, we focus on getting people out in the outdoors. We're good at what we do. We have industry leaders that are on our team. We're not a one-man band. We're certainly a staff. And frankly, we know what we're doing. We know what we're doing because we come from a place of winning, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I came from a company, I just came from a company that we drove the business, right? We think about ROI. We don't want to be a kumbaya. I don't want you to hug on me and tell me how great I am. What I really want you to do is jump in the boat with us allow us to jump in the boat with you, and so we can start rowing to a better place in diversity and inclusion. And that way, these conversations that we're having now, we'll come back the next time. We'll have some facts, we'll have some numbers, and then we'll show that they're all ours in place. Listen, it's going to take some money, and it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some effort. And those are the people who are watching this right now. If you've ever said in your mind, look, I want to be a better city, a better place, and I want to invite and have more diversity and inclusion, contact us. We're the company that can help you do that, right? We can help you do that in North Carolina. We can help you do that all over the place. But more importantly, what we want to do is we want to make sure that you are, when you wake up early in the morning the next day, that you know you've done something amazingly good, and people will be proud of you for doing so.
Nice. Any other comments?
Well, just on a statewide level, something that everyone can kind of partner with us at Visit NC on is we have several different initiatives that we're kind of working on that's on a statewide level. So it includes the western part of the state working on the outdoors. It includes the Piedmont. It also includes the eastern part of the state as well. So we focus on all three regions, and it's an outdoor initiative, and we'll be rolling that out to everyone here very soon. So, you know, Earl, I think we're going to, you definitely came up in the conversation when we were looking at that initiative.
Right on, man.
Also, yeah, and also, you know, we're working on, you know, Travel South does a civil rights trail, U.S. civil rights trail that pretty much covers the southern states, moving on into some of the northern states as well. But when we looked at that, you know, I think we had maybe 3, maybe 4 location sites that were on that particular map. Well, so what I thought was, well, you know what, that's not enough. There's way more history here. There's way more involvement that North Carolina has had within the movement. So I went over to the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission, as well as the Department of Natural Cultural Resources, and we came together and said, hey, well, let's look at and start to develop this North Carolina civil rights trail that we can mirror with that U.S. trail. So I think we sent some correspondence out a while ago. We want to continue to do that, and we'll be launching that initiative here probably within the next month or two on launching that initiative. We've already even partnered with the Pomeroy Foundation to get some funding to actually have some markers erected at some of the locations that have nothing there to show or to speak of. And then the last one is, of course, we had to cancel it this year because of the whole COVID-19 situation, but we're actually working with some folks out in California at the Grammy Museum to actually bring in a John Coltrane exhibit that we could actually, and now we're working with cultural resources as well to have that travel throughout the, and not just really focus on John Coltrane and in the Piedmont area, but we could also bring in Nina Simone that kind of covers our western part of the state. We also have Thelonious Monk, who's also an artist that's from North Carolina that kind of covers the eastern part of the state. So now we have an initiative to where we can focus on that music aspect that we have in North Carolina that really focuses on the African American community as well. And that's just a couple of things that we're working on. There's a whole bunch of other things that we want to do, but we do need the help of our partners throughout the state. I think that's just another good way for them to get involved with us on a statewide level to push this initiative forward.
Yeah, definitely. Deborah?
I wanted to give my time to Andre. I know we're close here, but I think that just really seals it. You know, wrapping up what both he and Earl said, you know, investing, embracing, so that we can move together on this, so that we're not having these conversations. And I mean, we all like to get out and enjoy the beautiful spaces. And North Carolina has some really gorgeous spaces, some fun places in metropolitan and urban areas. And I enjoy visiting all of them. I enjoy the outdoors. I enjoy, you know, the indoors, the arts, and, you know, our beaches, our mountains.
Right on.
So it's a great state to have to explore.
Yeah.
So,
Let's get on the offensive side of this thing and not the defensive side of it. Let's get on the offense of doing this and not the defense. The moment you get on the defense side of it, listen, I played football, right, at a high level. The offense already knows the play, right? And if you already know the play, you know how to score. The defense has to stop that. Well, we continue to go down this road and not make a lot of changes and not really do what we say we're going to do. What you're going to find is you're going to find a bunch of militant people that come and going to make you make a change, right?
Yeah.
And I think people are asking right now, what's going to happen is people are, sooner or later, you're going to be told, and no one wants to be told to do anything, right? So why not just get on the offensive side and try to figure it out right now, and let's do it the right way.
Yeah. Well, to wrap it up, Guy, I'm going to wrap it up. Does that work for you?
That sounds great. We really appreciate it. We got a couple of real quick questions I wanted to throw in for the panel before we go. The first off is question is for everybody: how do we get more African Americans into the North Carolina tourism industry?
How do we?
If you have to, there are a number of course, our colleges and institutions. How does the hiring generally happen? A lot of hiring tends to happen word of mouth. So if you have to consider who is in your circle of knowledge, and hey, I'm naturally going to call so-and-so because I know that their kid just graduated from state and I know she's looking for an opportunity. Hey, why wouldn't I open that up to her? That's fine, but that's also how you keep things in a circle. If you want to stretch out, you have to be willing to establish relationships. Go to some of these conferences. A lot of kids probably have no idea what it means to work in the hospitality industry. They're thinking about waiting tables, but that's not what it's about. It's about being that communications director, all of the people who meet me when I go to the different CVBs, when I have to do a story, who's greeting me out there, who's driving me around, who's showing me around a city. It's usually not somebody that looks like me, but it is what it is. So we can stop at it is what it is, or we can go to North Carolina has more historically Black colleges and universities than any other state in the nation. And many of the skills are transferable. So it's establishing relationships with those career centers, not just at the HBCUs, but then there are also lots of just colleges that have a very diverse populations. And you can be strategic about, hey, we really need someone who's going to bring a different perspective on this. So it can start with the recruiting stage. It can also start, with looking at what kind of folks do we need? Why don't I go to some different kinds of events? Why don't I begin to step outside of my comfort zone? So it might be some of that, and some folks might already be doing that, but that's what I would suggest.
And I'll also throw in, we've developed some resources for organizations that are looking to increase their pipeline with underrepresented groups. So if someone's interested in learning more information, I'd be more than happy to forward on a list of resources and strategies that are designed to do just that. So
when I
go ahead.
When it's very simple. The same thing that we do as a company. When we want to go find Black folks and get their opinions about the outdoor industry, we go where the Black folks are, and we go get their opinions. Right? There's not these things are not manufactured. We just have to get outside of our comfort zone and go and seek out those individuals. When you want to go buy a new car, most folks just don't go to one lot and buy that car. They search and find the best pricing. They find the best quality. They find all these things. You do some extensive research to find what you need, right? And so with that being said, go to the places, what are the HBCUs, not just HBCUs, but there are so many different avenues to go find Black folks who really want to go drive the business.
Right.
Community colleges.
Yeah, there's a ton of different organizations that have sprouted up just for this purpose too. So
yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think so often we think, oh, I need to go get a student from a tourism program. When you can get a good student that has a degree in whatever, if they're a good student and they're engaged, they're going to work well for you. And we do have great HBCUs here in North Carolina that are turning out some great students and potential workers. We had a couple other questions we'll answer after. We'll send them to you privately. But somebody asked if we could put back everybody's contact information. We've had a couple people that want to take Earl around and show him different parts of North Carolina. They're really excited. They're looking for his contact information. And Guy, if you could put up that initial slide that showed everybody's contact, maybe, and you guys, if you can just repeat your contact information for us.
Well, I'll give you guys mine. So, well, you know what, Deborah, ladies first. I'll let you go. Where am I? I have 6 sisters. I'd be ashamed of myself. Come on, Earl.
Hey, and I don't mind. I'm not mad at you. I'll take it. But you can reach me at dnoel@unctv.org, and I'm Googleable. You'll find me easily.
Right on.
dnoel@unctv.org.
Rhonda?
And my name is Rhonda Moret. The name of my company is Elevated Diversity. So if you want to shoot me an email, it's rmoret@elevateddiversity.com.
And my name is Earl B. Hunter Jr. Our website is blackfolkscamp2.com. You can't forget that. This is an amazing website. My email address is very easy. It's earl@blackfolkscamp2.com. You can find us on all the social media sites. We're very active social media wise. As a matter of fact, we tend to drive social media to a point where some places we feel like we're not only the driver, but we created it, right? And what we do, and that's how we do our business. So listen, 870-277-8335 is my telephone number. Again, 870-277-8335. We're good at what we do, and we'll make sure we're good for you too.
We want to make sure everybody has Andre's contact info as well.
I was saying, if you don't know how to contact me by now, we're real simple.
Right.
Visit nc.com. That's it.
That's it. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week, and we'll look forward to continuing our discussions.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
I enjoyed
guys.
that. Great
Good to see
info.
you guys. Thank you so much.
Great conversation.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bless.
Bye-bye.
Bless.